Welcome to the Dear Doc podcast, where we will discuss the business of running a dental practice with a panel of experts. Now, your host, Dr. Christopher Hoffpower.
Hey guys, this is Doc Hoffpower coming to you again from my studio here in Alvin, Texas. Now today I was lucky enough to interview one of my new friends, Dr. David Rice. We've been chatting a bit and his philosophies line up with mine so much that we thought it would be a great idea to actually have them on the podcast for David to talk a little bit about what it is he does and what he's built, which by the way, if you take a look at this website right here, igniteDDS, that is David's website. You can find some great information on there, some great tools, a couple of ebooks, and even some links to some free CE. So David, if you don't mind, introduce yourself and tell our audience a little bit about you.
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having me.
Anytime.
Dentist, 27 years. Where does the time go? I have no idea. But I'm a practicing dentist in Western New York, so Buffalo, for all of you who really like a lot of gray weather and snow, come visit us from pretty much August through May. Those are our peak snowy months. So I've been doing this a long time, and in addition to that, I'm a teacher at heart. I've taught part-time at Buffalo School. I've taught residents, and 10 years ago founded this little thing, igniteDDS, and kind of wanted to unshackle from the formal curricula at a dental school and be able to bring all the things that we know as private practitioners matter. So I'm a mentor and I'm an educator to dentists of all ages, but our niche really has been young dentists and students, because I know people need to start off sprinting as opposed to spend 5, 6, 10 years trying to figure out who they want to be when they grow up and how to get there.
Well, the average used to be, whenever I graduated in 2012, and gosh, you're right, the time does fly. I still feel like such a neophyte dentist. And, I own 2 practices, so I think it's one of those learning curves that just continues to be pretty steep throughout your career unless you surround yourself with some really good people and unless you seek out some really good information, which I think that you've really created a hub spot for people to do that with igniteDDS. If you wouldn't mind, talk to us a little bit about what igniteDDS actually teaches. What people are in the program, and you've always told us your goal is to educate young dentists, which, God, I wish I had known you when I was just starting out. You probably could have saved me a few $100,000. Glenn Vo definitely could have saved me a few $100,000. That man can find a deal. Tell us, what is it that you are teaching in this educational forum?
Sure. So, there used to be a time when I was brand new in dentistry where all you had to be was a great dentist. That's it. It was easy for me to build my first practice. The later 2 or 3, different, same time. But so we teach clinical skills. We have to be able to walk our talk, for sure. Patients deserve it. We deserve it. We worked long and hard to get here. We teach the business side of dentistry, a lot of leadership. I think the number one place dentists fall is we don't learn that in school. So we have a team crisis in dentistry today, which I think everybody who's joining us here today is acutely aware of. Team members are down. Team members are making more demands. I'm a culture guy, so I love my team, but you need to be a leader, docs. This is your name on the door and your team and your vision. So we bring a lot of that to the table, because I know we have to be strong clinically, strong leaders, strong culture builders, and we have to be great business people, because the game has changed.
I couldn't agree more. David, you and I were talking just before we came on air about a new project that I'm doing. I'm starting a consulting company with Joe Mayo and Glenn Vo to do some real no BS consulting, because I feel like a lot of programs out there, and this is why I love what you're doing. you're teaching good, solid business principles, because a lot of these consultants out there, they teach you just enough to get in trouble. And they teach you really, they call it empowering your team, but it's abdicating your own power and your own responsibility within the structure of the practice you've created. And that's never a good idea. You know, when the inmates are running the asylum, you know, not to say that my dental office is an asylum, but you know, there are some days where I feel like it might be. But you can't have that. You have to be, like you said, a leader. Talk to me about your philosophy of leadership and your philosophy of culture.
Sure. So I'm a firm believer. You know, people talk about vision and mission, and all that stuff's really important. A lot of people blow it way out of proportion. I would tell you from a foundational standpoint, the first thing I recommend to anybody, dentist or not, is get your personal vision. Who the heck do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want your day-to-day to look like? How long do you want to work and do this thing? What do you love to do in life? And that should be number one. And then number two is build a professional life that supports your personal life, that makes it happen. So when I bring vision into my dental practice, when we work with dentists to bring vision into their practices, make no mistake about it, it's your vision. Now, as a leader, we've got to share that with our team. We've got to engage people. We have to educate them. We've got to empower them. But it's not a group vision. It's your vision, docs. So it's your life. And what you want to do is build a team of people who share your view in the workspace, who share your view of life. And then it gets easy.
People who make you a better version of the person that you have chosen to be. Because 100%. If you are not being intentional in the people that you're surrounding yourself with, you're never going to hit your goals. And I'm sitting here and I'm chuckling while you're telling me your vision, because you and I haven't discussed this before. But for the practices that I have consulted with, I'll go in. I've never been charged anyone. I'll just go in and I'll look at things that they've gotten going on, and I'll say, okay, look, I would change this, this, and this. Or they'll say, hey, how do I get to this level? What I always tell them is to take a piece of paper, and I want you to write down, here's your homework. This is what I call my if day, if I've made it. So what is my day like professionally as a provider? What is my day like as a business owner? And what is my day like as a father, a husband? These things are so important, and they each inform the others. The only way to have balance, because the work-life balance is something that a lot of people put lip service to, but very few actually teach. And I think that's exactly what you're teaching. That's your culture you're teaching, is that your personal life has to inform who you are as a professional and what your business does, because it's all tied up. It's all part of the same thing. Who hasn't gone home and they've had a bad day at work and, you know, regrettably taken it out on their family by being snappish or what have you? Or who hasn't had to reprimand one of their children right before they go to work, or, you know, their wife's car gets a flat and they're running late, and that personal life encroaches upon their professional life, and maybe they're snappish with their team or what have you. Unless you make all of those things part of the same whole, and unless you make each one inform the other, you will never have balance.
Absolutely. And, you know, I think a lot of people make this mistake. So I'm going to give you 3 words. And I think many of us do this sort of inherently. We have to intentionally think about doing the reverse. So people talk about have, do, and be. So when I have enough money, I can behave this way, and then I get to be this person. When in fact, when we live the opposite, the formula works so much better. So if I am this person, I get to do all these things. And you know what? Because of that, this have is automatic. So we often, like, we've got to live life in reverse in order to get what we want. It's not, I'm going to wake up one day and it's just, you know, snap your fingers, magically happen. You know, multiple practices like that just didn't occur.
Right.
So you've got to be the person you want to be.
I'm going to steal that from my own personal life. I love that.
You're right. That's a good one.
You're exactly right. Yeah. I had an old colleague of mine tell me in a different profession, but he told me the only people who can afford to live the life that they envision for themselves are the exceedingly wealthy and the destitute. One, no one can take anything from, and the other is just the same.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
always
Great advice.
loved that one.
It's good, right? Because I mean, seriously, many people probably tuning into this have read Good to Great and Built to Last by Jim Collins, but good is the enemy of great.
It is.
If you've got nothing, you've got nothing. Like you said, you've got nothing to lose. If you're pretty darn good, it's easy to get comfortable. And I've watched 90% of dentistry be comfortable for the last 30 years.
Well, it's becoming increasingly uncomfortable because the things that they base that level of comfort on are being pulled away from them slowly.
For sure.
Team salaries, team expectations, team demands, reimbursement rates, disallowals. I mean, that, I don't know about you, but for me, that was a huge thing. We weren't still taking insurance, and I could only imagine what it was doing to other people's practices who were taking insurance. Because to be told that, oh yeah, not only are we not going to pay you, you can't have the patient pay you, and that's earth shattering. That had to have really hit some people hard. So they have to change. They have to adapt. They have to continue to grow.
Absolutely, and it's we see it all the time, all over social media, and it's the same 20 problems that dentistry's had for the last 100 years. They're just amplified today.
Absolutely.
And we now have a vehicle to speak out loud about them. But I mean, we have two choices, right? We can complain about it, or we can get better. And I would hope that, those of you who are here would rather get better than come out and commiserate with, 30 other thousand people.
You would hope, but there's an old phrase, something to the effect of, it is said, but it is written. It's a biblical reference, right? People say that they want to be better. They say that they want to go the extra mile, but a lot of times they just fall into that misery loves company bucket. And, to further expand on that, they fall into the crabs in a bucket mentality because of that. When they see someone who's doing something different or rising up from their current circumstance, and they haven't done it themselves and they don't see how to do it, there must be something wrong with that person. So they try to pull them down, and it's one of the things, as I said, I've done a little consulting for practices, and you are so right on the money. There are only maybe I'd even say 15 problems, because 5 or 10 of those problems are the result of another problem that was in the practice that if it was fixed, you wouldn't have the other ones. But every single dentist I've ever talked to, without fail, for some reason thinks that the problems that they have in their practice are unique to them. And I think that the reason is we're all so smart. You have to be smart to become a dentist, that we think, well, I can't have the same problems everyone else does.
Right.
These have to be unique to my situation. And it's kind of a form of self-flattery, I suppose. Well, no one can solve my problems exactly the way they solve someone else's problems, because mine are unique and I'm special. We're all special little snowflakes, right?
It's interesting. It's so very true. And the short answer to that is every single dentist out there lives in a practice with the exact same problem, and the solution is almost identical. Whether you're in an urban practice, suburban, rural, East Coast, West Coast, you take insurance, you don't take insurance, the big picture solutions, they're all the same. The message is the same. The messenger is key.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Do you find that, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to guess that you've seen the same thing I have. Almost all problems boil down to two things: lack of leadership and lack of intention. Because all the cultural issues you have is lack of leadership, and all of the systems-based issues that you have is lack of intention. I mean, there are some other things thrown in there, but those are like two of the huge things I concentrate on whenever I talk to a practice owner, because there's just so much to fix there.
There really is. And if, I don't know, I'm a focus guy, I would rather do a half a dozen things at an extremely high level than try to be good at 10, 20, 30 things. There's not enough hours in the day. So if you just focus on those two areas that you just mentioned, there is no way you can't be successful when you invest the time and the energy into those buckets.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of noise out there. So
well, there's so many old adages. Okay, so uncommon sense, right? The problem is that we all know all these things. Everyone says things like, well, what gets measured grows. So if you're measuring your own intention and you're measuring your own leadership, you can't help but grow. And it's just putting your mind on those things and intentionally thinking about them and having the courage to be a little bit introspective.
Yeah.
And looking at yourself and saying, is this me? Am I getting in my own way? That's what I had to do, and it was humbling. I'll be very honest with you. And this is something I tell everyone that I talk to whenever they're talking about their woes in their business, because they usually come to you in a point of almost depression. They feel helpless in the situation. Yeah. And I think that for a lot of us, we have to get to that point before we'll seek help. Guys, please don't put yourself through that. You can fix these problems if you just are a little introspective and say, maybe I'm the one who needs working on. And you go to someone like David and you take the classes you need to become a better leader and to be more intentional in the way that you problem solve in your business. And I'm gonna go out on another limb here. Divorce all decisions from emotion.
That's a good one.
It's
a really good one, because as human beings, we inherently default to emotional choices and we justify those choices later with logic. And that is absolutely the opposite formula that works. Yeah, so, for sure.
Talk to me a little bit about your program and some of the amazing people that you've got teaching in your program.
Yeah, I'd love to. So what we saw in dentistry is the same thing I'm guessing most of you have seen, is there's a gap, right? So there's some elite level continuing education in dentistry, and we all know those institutions. They do an amazing job. Absolutely. And you're going to spend 10, 20, 30, 50, $100,000. If I told all of you how much money I've spent in my career, it's well north of $500,000. Well north of $500,000. Was it worth it? For me, absolutely. For most of you, you're shaking your heads like you're insane, David. So the goal of igniteDDS University was to go get some of those elite speakers and to bring them to a price point that like the regular folk in dentistry can afford. So we've got, on the clinical side, we've got guys like Abdi Samani. He's a huge Pankey speaker, Dawson speaker, Coyce, Spear. So we went out and collected strong clinicians in clinical spaces in implantology and endo, sleep, anterior, posterior, restorative. On the business side, we went and got all the people you'd see from the podium at the greatest shows, right? Greater New York, California Dental, Chicago Midwinter, and we recruited them. So, the university it's not the David Rice show. I have a lane that I excel in. So in my lane, I can teach all of you how to be a tremendous leader. And those lessons will double your practice in less than a year if you listen. But that's just my lane. There's lots of people with other lanes. We went and got them. We're adding 2 new courses from 2 new speakers every single month. And the design is an on-demand, like Netflix style education, chunked in small doses. You can take it when you want. CE's all fully automated for you. And we wanted to take away the financial obstacle, for people, so you can get the very best speakers in dentistry for a price you can afford. And yes, you can do it from your living room or your office or wherever the heck you want to. So that's the nuts and bolts of it.
I love, we've joked before, because I'll say things and you're like, yeah, I wouldn't say it exactly like that, but I agree. So I'm going to take a stab at something you didn't say. You said there's 2 different kinds of education, and then
Sure.
You talked about the really good one. There is some truly mediocre and subpar education out there too, and trying to cut through that chaff when you are a new dentist or a dental student, because folks, if any dental students are out there listening to this, take his courses. Join igniteDDS. Start learning today. I had over 100 hours of CE when I escaped my dental education.
Yes.
But truthfully, some of these courses are just trash. They're crap. And that's the thing that David wasn't going to say because he's a nice guy, but I'm not. So I will say it. Some of these courses are trash. Some of these people are teaching you things that don't work. And they're taking your money to teach them to you. Find some great mentors and some great educators. Spend a little bit of money. Learn from the people who've done it.
Yeah, I couldn't
I know you
agree
can't
more.
say those same words, but you know.
Man, there's so many words I'd love to say to everybody out there. But yes, if you said 80% of everything everybody sees out there is junk, that's a fair number. It's not an unreasonable thing to say out loud. And yes, dentists, if you want better for yourselves, you actually have to spend money and invest in yourself, because a free course, somebody bought it. Yep. It's not free. Somebody paid for that time. So true education means nobody has a vested interest in that education other than it's just pure. And when the message is strong and the messenger is strong, make data-driven decisions. You said it earlier, Doc. If you take a course and you feel good about it because emotionally it captured your attention, but it doesn't translate
right
to helping your practice and helping your patients, helping you as a leader, then okay, so you felt nice for 10 minutes, and I guarantee the next day you woke up and you felt like garbage again, and you needed your next fix. So
yes. And David,
get with the right folks.
You put your finger on that, and I realized the part that I didn't say. It's not just that 80% of these courses out there are crap. It's not just that they are mediocre. What it is there are some of these people that are truly good at what they do, but what they do is not teach. You have to find those people who just seem to have that magical quality of being able to both teach and to do. There's an old saying about that, isn't there? Those who cannot.
Yes, there is.
So if you can find that magical combination of traits, that's really who you want to go to. I don't want to disparage any of my dentist friends who teach, but a lot of people are very knowledgeable dentists, but they're terrible educators. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, you're right. You have to be able to deliver. So the experience factor of whoever is teaching is really, really important. And then you have to be able to translate the message so that every student can go back to their practice and deliver. How many rooms have you sat in where like the presenter was clearly excellent, but at the end of it, you just felt terrible about yourself because they made everything seem like it was insurmountable. Guys, there's nothing we're not, I don't mean to belittle us. We're not stupid people, but we're not brain surgeons either. Everything we do comes with a formula and a recipe. And yes, you have to be able to think, and yes, you need the hand skills to deliver it if it's clinical, or the team on the business side to deliver it, but it's not rocket science. It really isn't. It's just, it's a recipe.
It's not rocket surgery either.
It's not rocket surgery either, exactly.
It's so funny. You're talking about this, and man, every time we talk, it just floors me how many similarities there are in the ways that we think about these things. I'm planning a course right now that I'm teaching. All right. So written on this is you must make them understand the communication formula. Interval leads to intention, leads to attention. Coding, transmission, receipt, and decoding. Duplication of a reality so that they can understand. It's all easy peasy stuff, guys. The thing is that these courses, they just provide you a framework for thinking about the common sense shit you probably should already know.
Right. Very true.
So David, you're a member of the business of dentistry, and I'm going to go far afield here on this one. I know that you've given some really great advice to some of the folks on there because I read your posts. I don't know if you noticed, but I like them quite a bit. Just so I can follow down what people are saying on there. Given some of the Dear Doc questions that you've seen, and given some of the posts that you've seen on the business of dentistry, I know there's probably been a couple of them where you just wanted to put your face through a wall. So
Yes.
talk to us a little bit about some of the things you've seen on the business of dentistry that you think that you have some very simple answers to, so that our listeners can actually get some good meat and potatoes from this podcast.
Sure. So, I'll talk about, one of the biggest pain points out there right now, and that is team members walking, team members complaining, team members want. And what I see is it's very easy. And it's the old adage, right? We don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And it's very easy to come to TBOD and say, here's my problem, and then get 100 people to agree and think that there's no solution. There's absolutely a solution. And some people aren't going to like me for this.
We're talking about commensurating again, right?
Yeah. So here's the scoop, and y'all can hate me if you want to, but I've always promised to be truthful. If you have major team issues, go stand in front of a mirror, because the problem is you. You have taught. We teach people how to treat us, whether it's our children as parents or our teams in our practice. So if everybody's walking out, they're not leaving your job, they're leaving you. If people are fighting all the time, they're fighting because you're not leading them. And you can overcome this, because I wasn't always a great leader either. I learned the hard way. You don't need to suffer like I did for a half a dozen years.
So I don't know about you. I grew up with 3 siblings, all of them sisters, all of them younger. And one of the first things that I taught them was, whenever they were out with a guy, in any situation, whether they're dating or not, when they approached the front door, they should turn sideways and stare at the guy until he opened the door.
I like it.
That was teaching him how to respect her correctly. Because most guys they're not very chivalrous anymore. And so if you lay down that expectation, that's what's going to happen. Because no one wants to be looked at like they're stupid, right? And so it really kind of warmed my heart to find out that one of my sisters is teaching her daughters to do the same thing right now, which just, that's a win, right? But it's little things like that. That's how you have to be intentional in this. You have to set out with a goal of what you want. You have to lay the groundwork, lay the expectations. And this is the part, I think, where dentists, they fall down a lot. And David, maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe I'm being too judgmental. Dentists are so poor at conflict. They want to be liked. And I think it's because everyone says, I hate the dentist. Oh, I feel bad about what I do because I'm a dentist. Oh, I make a lot of money, but it really seems like the things I do are pretty easy. They don't respect their own clinical skills enough to charge what they should charge. Mm-hmm. And they allow people to walk all over them, and they will not write them up. They have this inherent issue with conflict. And until they get over that, they will never, and that doesn't mean you have to be hostile to people. Don't mistake that. It just means that you have to respect yourself enough and the rules that you've laid down enough to actually make sure people adhere to them. You need to write employees up. How many times have you seen, oh, well, the front desk comes in and, I think 4 posts this week. The front desk comes in when they want to come in. They're always late. They're never on time. I think they're stealing from me. I go up front. They're on their cell phones and they're not answering calls. What do? Establish company policies, have a written handbook, enforce what the employees are supposed to be doing, and yet treat them respectfully. It's not that big of a balancing act.
Can I give you a 3-step process, a little meat like you wanted? Awesome. Okay. So yes, expectation number 1, everything you just shared. In our practice, our 3 steps are, everybody's agreed to how we win the game. That's exactly what Doc just shared. The moment we've all agreed to that, the first time somebody goes against the grain, we sit down, we have a conversation, we write it up. But it's an easy conversation. It's just objective and formal. Second time, we do the same. It's right up. Third time, you leave your keys on the desk. It's your last day. in our practice. Now, everybody knows the rules of the game, right? Because people need to know how to win, but they also need to know the rules. Everybody knows those rules on day one. That's really important.
Yes.
In 27 years, I've had one person who had to fire herself. I never fired her. We literally sat down on number 3, and Linda, still one of my favorite people. I'm like, Linda, do you know why we're here? She took her keys, I kid you not, out of her lab coat pocket, put them on the desk and said, I let the team down. It's time for me to move on. And the coolest thing to your point is it doesn't have to be confrontational. Was, I looked at her, I'm like, you know what, Linda, you're amazing. We love you. You and your family, you are always welcome here. I just know there's a better fit out there for you. And I kid you not, it's got to be a decade now since this happened. She and her family are still patients at our practice.
It's silly and it's maybe a little petty, but isn't that the most wonderful feeling when someone you've had to fire? The first thing they ask is, "Can we still be patients?"
Yep.
Makes you feel amazing. It really does.
For sure.
I have to say, I suspect I know some of the training that you've paid as much as you have for. I heard some Cialdini in there, and I also heard actually some Hubbard in there, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. There's no wonder we think so much alike.
Yeah, and we mirror this on igniteDDS University, but I learned so many lessons from people outside of dentistry. The
Absolutely.
clinical stuff is key, but the business side and the leadership side, there are some great leaders and business people who are not dentists. I know, shocking.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and once again say the obnoxious, insulting thing that you won't say. Most dentists suck at business. Most dentists suck at leadership. And the things that you're teaching are the things that you're being taught whenever you go to some of these courses. Usually it's just someone who sucks a little bit less than the people around them.
It's a really good point. It really is. And, consultants today, like dentists, there's a top 10%. There's an elite pool. They know their stuff and they know their work and they can teach it. And then there's the rest of the world. So we have to be careful because the buck stops with us. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you what, before we head off here, I would love to chat about some books. I don't know about you. After dental school, it took me a long time to get back into reading. I used to be an avid reader. I think dental school just broke me.
Understandable.
I was the geek who bought all the books. So, that's like unheard of today. No one buys the books. But
no.
Some great books. We talked about Cialdini, influence, prefluence, huge influences on the way that I do things. You sounded like you had some of that same training. Do you have any books in that vein that you would recommend to anyone?
I'll tell you what I like. I like a book called Essentialism. So it's all about focus. It's all about, digging deep, not wide, and how each of us can assess what really is important to us and ignore all those other great opportunities. That's a good one. I like that one a lot. I like Leaders Eat Last. That's a really great read. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that pop into my head. Traction's a good one for systems. I'm sure you've read that.
Have you read
Gosh, I got to pull out my phone and look what I have in here.
Hey, David, have you read this one?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
One of my favorites. I learned more from that book. I was actually going over some of my old notes from whenever I started reading it, whenever I opened my practice. But it's funny. Have you ever gone over your old notes from these classes and seen little pearls that you wrote down and like, shit, I forgot about that. I've got to re-implement that. But
that's a tremendous point,
isn't it?
That is a tremendous point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we do that, right? I am a reader and an audiobook listener and the whole 9 yards. I'm a perpetual student, but I would tell you all that, don't read 1,000 books, just read like 20 great ones and read them slowly and take notes. I love that you have that notepad. I do the same thing. I have my computer, but I like to scribble, and it makes me feel like I'm learning more deeply.
I really do. I feel like if I'm putting pen to paper, now I'll type as I'm listening to a lecture, but I'll use the Cornell note system, and I'll write off to the sides. Oh, okay, this is a question I want to ask later. Or, oh, wow, that's a really neat pearl. I need to make sure I implement that. Or, crap, I had this problem last week. I need to go back and readdress this. But again, that's being an active learner and being introspective.
Yeah.
Being willing to work on yourself.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you do this or not, but what we've done in our practice for too many years to say out loud is all of us docs read a book together. Mm-hmm. And then when we find the ones that we really love, and we've worked out the lessons we want our team to learn, we buy everybody a copy. We usually do just 2 a year, so we don't want to overwhelm our team and distract them from the big picture goal. It's amazing how much more you can integrate when everybody's on the exact same page at the exact same time.
I'm going to go a step further, and I'm going to say you will know beyond a shadow of a doubt if you actually do this and you buy one book a year even, and you just say, hey, every month, we're going to go over a chapter. So everyone just go ahead and look back over that. You will know with great certainty who is not in the right position. Because when you come to that meeting, the people who want to be there, they'll have read the book.
Yeah.
And the people
they'll have something to say.
And they'll have something to say, exactly. The people who are not fits will not read the book, or they will get nothing from it. And that doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means they're not coachable, or they're not introspective enough to understand the lessons in the book that apply to them.
Yeah, and I'm going to add something to that is I know we're in a world today where many people are fearing, well, I know this person isn't the right person and the right fit, but if I lose them, we're going to be down a person. I would argue we're all much better off functioning a person down and railing our team than bringing the wrong person or people into our team or letting them stay.
It's like a person who's swimming from a shipwreck and hauling an anchor behind them going, but if I let go of this anchor, I won't have an anchor. Stop doing that to yourselves. When you go into work, if the first thought in your mind when you wake up is work, and the next thought or emotion is, I don't want to go in today, there's someone you need to fire.
Yes,
I don't think you would say that, but I'm going to say it. If there's something that's keeping you from loving what you do, it's either internal or indirectly internal because it's your fault because of your poor leadership. But there's someone on your bus that needs to have a seat on a different bus going in a different direction.
Absolutely. And I would encourage all of you, we call this in our practice, we call it eat the frog. So when there's something that and it's just you got that pit in your stomach, make that the first thing you do.
It's a great book
on whatever day it is. Yeah.
Eat that frog, right? Fantastic.
Eat that frog. It's a great read. Yep. It's a great read.
Your library must be as bad as mine.
My poor wife.
Are you doing your audiobooks at 2x and 3x, or are you like listening to it driving? What are you doing?
I do it when I'm at the gym mostly, or when I'm walking Gibbs, our husky. That's good listening time for me. And I'm like a 1.5 to 2x guy because I really want, and I'm pausing all the time and I'm trying to think about, how do I apply this? How do I make this work? I'm so envious of
my friends who they'll listen to these things and they're listening to like 5 or 6 books a week and like they're running through them, I guess, whatever the highest speed is on Audible. And I just honestly, I've tried getting into Audible books, but I can't find the right framework in my own mind to do it. I've got to read it. And I've even gone so far as to get the audiobook and then I'll end up buying the paperback or the hardback because I get to a point where if you've studied the Hubbard stuff, when you don't understand something, your brain pauses and everything after that, you don't understand it all. And you have to trace back to the thing that you didn't understand. And I'm like that with audiobooks. As it's going, I'm like, what did I just hear? And it's too distracting. I've got to have paper so I can look at the words and go, okay, what did I not understand? But it takes all kinds. Well, my friend, I'll tell you, this has been a fantastic opportunity to talk to you. Is there anything that you want to leave our audience with? Yes,
absolutely. So I'm so in love with what we've done at the university, and I love TBOD. It's those people who know me, like, I'm not normally a Facebook group kind of guy because of all the noise we talked about earlier. But you have a great community. It's an awesome think tank. So for your group, we're going to drop our price from $500 to $240. It's an annual subscription. I'm never going to be that guy that says, you got to do this right now, because the price is going to go away. But I would tell you, yes, the price will go away at some point. We can't do that forever because of the level of speakers we're bringing into this. But I would encourage all of you, if you want better for yourself and if you want better for your team, there's courses for your entire team on there. Invest in yourself. And it doesn't have to be igniteDDS University. There's lots of good places. You can DM me. I'll tell you all the places I spent tens of thousands of dollars if you'd like. But if you want a great education for a great value, I'd be honored if you came and checked it out.
Well, there you have it, folks. David, would you do me a favor? Post that on TBOD after we're done with our interview here, and I will put it up into the announcement section so that people can very easily find it.
You bet.
Last thing is, one of these days, you and I need to sit down and talk about what trainings we've each had. I suspect we've followed some very similar paths in our training, just from hearing the things that you've taken yourself. But
I'm quite sure we either sat in the same rooms or a disciple of one of those people for sure.
Absolutely. Well, folks, this has been the Dear Doc podcast. Again, Dr. David Rice of igniteDDS. Practicing clinician for 27 years, just sharing some of his wisdom with you and trying to get you some cost-effective, high ROI CE. Check him out at igniteDDS.com and go ahead and click the link that he's going to post for you guys to go and get a discount on that. I think that's really generous. Once again, thank you for wasting an hour of your time listening to the sound of our voices. Hope that you have a fantastic day. This is Doc, signing off.
Thanks for listening to the Dear Doc podcast, your source for the business and legal questions associated with your dental practice. Don't forget to subscribe to the Dear Doc podcast on all major platforms.